Hey there, sheepdogs. Welcome to Sheepdogs Union. Today I want to talk about probably the same subject I've talked about a lot of times, but from a slightly different angle because of a minor little debate I got in on Facebook today. I couldn't remember if it was today or yesterday, but I think it was today. And that is about, again, the old, argument, revolver versus automatic. I carry a revolver. I think that's the right choice. I argue for it pretty regularly, and people always disagree, and they have all their different arguments. Why not? And so in this case, it was about reliability. And one of the issues that I've heard voiced before, I think Paul Harrell mentioned it, and I've heard other people talk about it, that the issue with automatics isn't that the system itself is unreliable. You can, standing at the range, boom, 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 that automatic, the mean time between failures for the automatic and the revolver are both so high that it doesn't matter. It's not a risk worth considering. But when you talk about reliability, from a design engineer and marketing standpoint, you're only focused on eliminating the reliability factors of the system itself. So, does the gun itself function reliably? So, from that mindset, you ignore things like user-induced failures. You ignore things like environmentally induced failures. You ignore things like ammo issues. You ignore things like magazine issues if it's if that's not the part of the system that you're responsible for designing. And so one of the things that I have noticed is that when people they'll say, oh, it's perfectly reliable. Okay, but have you ever accidentally bumped the mag release and dropped the magazine? Oh, well, yeah. Have you ever bumped the slide stop and accidentally locked it open while you're firing? Well, yeah. Have you ever ridden the slide and caused a failure to feed? Well, yeah. So this was driven home to me recently because I've started shooting two-gun competition, and I've basically seen 10 times as many malfunctions in the competition environment as I ever have on the range and on static range. And what I realized is that under stress, the probability of those user-induced malfunctions goes up dramatically. And obviously in a self-defense shooting, you're under stress. And so, when evaluating the reliability of the system as a whole, you have to account for not just the gun itself, but you have to also account for all the other variables that go into it. And even if it's quote unquote just a training issue, first of all, A, are you really getting that training? I don't know. B, I used to work in a steel mill, and we're all about safety, obviously. And there's this hierarchy you're supposed to follow. If there's a hazard in the workplace, first thing you try to do, can you eliminate the hazard? Okay, so in this case, we're talking about malfunction of this. We're talking about self-defense shooting, right? Okay, so can you avoid the situation? Yeah, okay. If you can't eliminate the hazard, the next thing you do is you try to engineer a system that separates people from the hazard, right? So you put guarding in place, you put, special, like restraints that'll actually pull your hands back as the machine closes, that sort of thing. These are engineered solutions. That's your second iteration. If you can't do that, then you go to training. So basically, yeah, sure. If you can train your way out of those issues, you can train to clear malfunctions super fast, which, realistically in a gunfight, you're never going to be fast enough. But you can train yourself not to hit the slide stop, all that stuff. If you practice under stress enough, you can get to the point where you have the muscle memory that it's not a problem. But if you can eliminate the potential, if you can eliminate that failure mode by an engineering solution, your priorities are wrong. If you're trying to train yourself to use a system with a failure mode that you could engineer out, then your priorities are wrong. Yeah, you know what? The system itself might be just as reliable. The guy with all the training versus the guy with all the training on the other gun, they might be just equally reliable. But if one has a lower training requirement, then you're better off, because what you can do is, let's say you are that guy who has all that time and energy to do training. Instead of drilling and drilling and drilling and training and training and training so that you don't induce malfunctions in your gun, you can spend that time with your marksmanship. You can spend that time learning the law. You can spend that time learning, psychology and de-escalation tactics, etc. So, it's important when evaluating a system, of any system, but in this case, a defensive firearm, that you evaluate the system as a whole, not just the reliability of the core system, but of all external and extraneous factors, including yourself. And that if there are potential failure modes, including yourself, that if you have a choice between an engineering solution by using a gun that is not sensitive to those user-induced malfunctions, like a revolver, that is a better choice than training, if you can do it. And so that's my take on that issue. Thought if that helps you, I hope it does. And like, share, and subscribe if you like what I'm doing. And if enough people do that, I might start recording videos more often. And we'll see how that goes. So hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you later. And always remember to be ready to be somebody else's miracle. It's been a while since I've recorded, and so I forgot my little catchphrase. So, yes. See you later. Bye.